Hey everyone, welcome to Frannie Square and to part one of our Fall Fireside Afghan crochet along and Jasmine Stitch tutorial. Okay, so if you saw Show and Tell episode 11, you know that I talked about doing a fall Afghan or blanket as a crochet along. And originally I had just put together a few stitches in your normal sampler Afghan style and stripes, but I really wanted to make this different and I wanted to make it a community project where we designed it together. So then my idea was we could start with a center square and then just keep working out using different stitches that you suggest. And I asked for some suggestions of stitches that you might want to learn or just stitches that you love that you'd like to see in the Afghan. And I did get a few suggestions. The first suggestion came from Joanne Entwistle, and she said she wanted to learn the Jasmine Stitch, which is such a beautiful stitch. And I thought that would be the perfect stitch for the centerpiece of this blanket. So I made a square. Originally I was going to make it 12 by 12, but somehow I ended up with 15 by 15. So mine is going to be a big center square, but you can do yours any size you like. And the second half of this video is actually going to be a tutorial on that stitch and how to start the blanket. Now you all know that I love the fall season. I love the food, I love the clothes, and just the feeling of sitting by the fire with a blanket on, maybe with a cup of tea or a glass of wine and relaxing and doing some crocheting. So I thought that this blanket could be our Fall Fireside Afghan. That just evoked the feeling of fall that I love so much. And I thought that this crochet along would be one that we designed together as a community. So if you have any ideas as far as not just the stitches, but as far as the composition of the Afghan, please list those in the comments as well. I'll tell you my idea right now is to start with the center square and then with each new stitch, start working around it, but not necessarily in just squares. Maybe we'll do 3 sides and then start the 4th side with the next stitch and maybe do 2 or 3 and change it up so it's kind of like an interlocking kind of look. If you like that idea, let me know. If you think that we could do something different that would look great, let me know that as well. I really want this to be a community project that we designed together. So as I said, I used the Jasmine Stitch for the center square, and I actually blocked my center square. Now I don't do a lot of blocking, but I felt that if I start out with a really nice square, the rest of my blanket's going to come together nicely. So I did block it. Now I'm using Stylecraft Special DK 3-weight yarn. It's an acrylic yarn, and I really like that yarn, and I have a lot of colors of it. So you can use any yarn you'd like and use the corresponding hook that you'd like as well. Now I'd like to have this Afghan done fairly quickly, and you can work at your own pace, no worries. I'm going to try to post the next stitch and the next step of the Afghan fairly quickly so that you'll have them and you can work as quickly or as slowly as you would like. So I hope you'll all join me in making this Afghan and in suggesting stitches and ideas for the design of the Afghan. Okay, so grab your hook, grab your yarn, and let's get started on the Jasmine Stitch. Okay, so let's start the Jasmine Stitch. It's a beautiful stitch. I'm using Stylecraft Special DK in Spice, and it's a 3-weight yarn. And you can use any yarn you like, any hook you like. I'm using the Prim hook in a 4mm. The reason I like the Prim for this so far is I wanted something with a longer hook, but still with a wider handle. You'll see why. I'm going to be holding a lot of stitches on this hook. And for me, if I use a metal hook all the same width, my stitches tend to slip down, so I like a little bit of a barrier there. So, and I am getting ready to test this hook out and do a review on this one. I finished using these hooks, and I do have a review coming up on them. This was the least expensive set in my hook haul, and you might be surprised by my review. So stay tuned for that. Okay, little teaser there. All right, so to get started, we're gonna make a slip knot, put it on our hook, and we're gonna chain 2. Okay, now we're going to work in the second chain from the hook. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull up this loop so that it's, I would say probably a little less than an inch or so, about an inch. You can make it any length you want, just be consistent. Then we're going to yarn over, go into that second chain from the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. And you want to stretch it out so, again, you have the same length on them. Now you'll have 3 on your hook. Then I'm going to yarn over, go back into that chain, second one from the hook, yarn over, pull up another loop. Okay, now I have 5 on my hook. Each time I go in, I end up with 2 more on my hook. And the reason for that is that I'm yarning over before, I'm going in, I'm yarning over after, so both of those yarn overs will count, and that'll be 2 more. So now I will have 7 on my hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, normally for a puff stitch at this point, I would just yarn over and pull this through all of these. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just stick my middle finger in there to keep that loop separate because I am going to use this loop separately. So what I'm going to do now is yarn over, holding that out with my middle finger. I'm just going to turn my hook and come through all of the loops. I'm still holding that one, and I'm going to scooch my hook in there. Once my hook's in, I'm totally fine. Then I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, just like that, and then yarn over and do a single crochet. Now I'm going to chain 1, and it's time, and that's my first little puff, and now I'm going to start on my second one. So what you'll see is that you are actually creating a foundation row of puff stitches. So when you get to the length that you want, you can just stop. It's really great. It's not like starting with chains, and then once you start to crochet into them, you're not sure what length it'll be when you start doing the stitches. You're actually starting with the stitches. Okay, so now we're going to work right under that single crochet, and you can see all the loops hooked onto it there. So that's where we're going to work. So again, we're going to pull up a loop, we're going to yarn over, go into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then make them all the same. There's 3. Okay, go back in there. 5, and one more time, and your fingers will definitely start to get used to this, so don't worry if you're not getting it at first. It does get easier. Now I want to separate out this loop, yarn over, pull it through, okay, and then stick my hook in that loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through both, single crochet and chain, and then I'm on my way. So now I'm going to make as many puff stitches for the length of the square I want for the center of my blanket. You can make it a 12 by 12 square, you can make it a 6 by 6. You decide what size you want the center of your blanket to be. Now I've already finished my square, so I know my square is 15 by 15. It's a pretty large center square. I really love the Jasmine Stitch, and I think it's going to be a beautiful centerpiece for our blanket. So just continue on until you have the length that you want for this square, and I will meet you back there. Okay, so once you get to the length you want, you may notice this is short. This is just a sample. I have 10 puff stitches here. The reason I'm using a sample, full disclosure, is because when I went back to edit my first video, it was atrocious. I was completely off the camera for half of it. I don't know what I was doing, but I really need help with this camera work. So I'm going to try to stay in the camera here. Okay, so once you get to the length you want, you're going to do 1 extra puff stitch, okay? So I'll just do my last one with you. 3, 5, 7, holding that one out. There Okay, so we've done our extra puff stitch after the length we wanted, and that's just because that's going to be the start of our second row. Now, what we're going to be doing is attaching 3 puffs together, and that's why we're going to have a lot of loops on the hook, and that's why I wanted a longer hook. So we just finished our single crochet. I'm going to chain 1 as we normally do, and I'm going to start the way we normally would. I'll extend my loop, then I'll go into this stitch here. That's 3 loops on the hook, 5, 7. Now instead of holding out this loop and doing the 8th, I'm going to be working into the next 2 places. So I'm just going to yarn over, that's my 8th, and start in here. 1, 3, it's just the next one down, 5, 7, okay, then I'm going to yarn over and go into this one here, the next one down, because I just worked into this one, and that's going to be 1, 3, 5, and 7. So you can see I have a lot of loops on my hook. Now for this last 8th one, I am going to hold this out, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through all the loops. And this is the hardest part of this whole process. I guarantee you your fingers and hands will get used to it and you'll get better at it. Don't go by what you're about to see, because I'm doing it through a camera and that makes it much more difficult for me. But I like to turn my hook to pull it through all of the stitches. Then I'm going to go in under that one that I was holding out and pull up that, and I'm just going to slip stitch instead of doing the single crochet. I find the slip stitch gives me a tighter looking flower. Up to you, you can still do the single crochet. Then I will chain 1 as always, and to begin my next stitch I'm going to go into the center here of this flower and then work the next 2 spaces between the puffs. So for this one, pull up again, go in, 3, 5, 7, just wrap for the 8th and go into the next space between the 2 puffs. 1, 3, 5, 7, wrap for the 8th, and then I'm going to go down to my next space. 1, 3, 5, and 7. Again, I have all of these on my hook. Hold this out, yarn over, and pull through all of these. Okay, then I'm going to go under that one that I was holding out, bring it up, and slip stitch. There we go. Okay, so you can see our flowers are starting to form. Okay, now I'm going to chain, and this time I'm going to be working in the center here, and then here and here. Okay, so I'm going to do it again, pulling up my loop. 3, 5, 7, yarn over, going into this next space here. 1, 3, 5, 7, yarn over, going into the next one. 1, 3, 5, 7. Now holding that out, taking my hook and turning it and coming through all of these stitches. See, you get better. Now that time I looked underneath the camera to do it. Okay, and then I'm just going to go into that loop that I was holding out, pull up the loop, and slip stitch and chain 1. My next one will be here and these next two. And you'll continue down till you get to the end of the row. So I'll meet you toward the end and I'll show you how I finish off the row. Okay, so now I'm toward the end here. I have this last one where I'll be working into the center here, here, and at the very end. So that'll be my last three. So as normal, I'm going to just pull up my loop, 3, 5, 7, yarn over, go into the next space, 1, 3, 5, and 7. Sorry about that. Yarn over, and now I'm going to go into this end right there. Yarn over, go in, 1, 3, 5, 7. I have all 3 on my hook. I'm going to just hold that out and pull through all of them. There we go. Pull through all of them. Go into that. Yarn over, pull through, and slip stitch. Then I'm going to chain and turn my work. Okay, so here I am, and ready to start my next row. Now this next row is going to be how you're going to do every single row after this, and you'll just continue until you have a square the size you want. Okay, so we begin each row with a single puff stitch. I already did my chain, so I'm going to work right into this where I normally would and in the way that I was doing my first puff stitches. So I'm going to pull up the loop, go in, 3, 5, 7, and I just want a single puff stitch, so I'm going to hold this out. This will be really easy for you now. And go in there, pull it up, and I do my single crochet on my single puffs, just like that, chain 1. And now I'm going to work my first cluster. It's going to be into here, here, and here. Okay, so same thing. Pull up, going in here, 3, 5, 7, yarn over, go into the next space, 1, 3, 5, 7, going to yarn over, go into this next space, 1, 3, 5, 7. Now I have all of these on my hook. Here's the tough part, pulling through them all, just like that, grabbing that, pull it, and slip stitch shut, and chain. And I'm off and running. So you can see them starting to form. Now my next 3 spaces will be this one, and this one. And I'll just continue along and keep going up until I have a square the size I'd like it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed learning the Jasmine stitch. It's a beautiful stitch, and while it may seem a little bit difficult at first, the hardest part about it is just coordinating your fingers. The stitch itself is not difficult, and your fingers really do learn a rhythm. So just give it a little bit of time and you will get it, I promise. I hope you'll be joining us for the Fireside Afghan crochet along, and please don't forget to put in the comments any stitch that you'd like to see in the Afghan and any ideas you have for the Afghan. Also, if you have any questions about the Jasmine stitch, please feel free to leave those in the comments as well, or send me an email to my email address, franniesquare@gmail.com, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. I'm really looking forward to doing this project together. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. Remember to make it your own, and I'll see you soon.